Okay, so I kind of biffed the intro, but that's okay. I didn't really know what to start with, but we have to start with a new song. I can't play my song because my song started as being royalty free, but is now copyrighted, unfortunately. So I need to find a way to make that no longer the case. If that means adding some piano to it and just, that's how we do it. I don't know the extent that we would have to do it. But we're going to be super focused on math today. And I don't even have my camera set up. But it's partially because I was eating. But it's also because I want to focus on math. And I purposely didn't even do a stream on Instagram because it just doesn't do it justice when we're trying to look at the math and we're not using OBS. When I'm holding the camera sideways and it's just not the way that things should be done. So we're going to be sharing the screen basically the entire time tonight. I want to talk about extra-arithmetic symmetry. I want to talk about the mathematics that I'm finding in my models lately. I want to talk about what is to be expected from potentially Eric Weinstein's paper that should be released tomorrow if he's on schedule, which is April Fool's. And he started a tradition of releasing a paper on April Fool's because he thought that it was basically like a free pass so that it would be easy to propose theories that are pretty out there. Okay, so I'm just going to leave this like this. Now I only have to worry about one chat. I told everybody on Instagram that they should meet us here. And hopefully they do. Let me just move my keys. Okay. So I'm pretty excited about this stream actually because we've been talking a lot and I want to really delve into the models a lot. Hello, Chris, probably. It's not Chris, actually, Torin. It's John, I believe. Can I play Paprika on piano? No. Don't even know what that is. And you love April Fools? That's cool. Never been a huge fan, but I am if it becomes like the day where everybody unveils their, crazy theories. Then I would be a huge fan of April Fools. But never been like a huge April Fools person. But I don't know. I don't know why that is. Maybe you can share why you like April Fools. I feel like every time I think of April Fools, I just think of like grade school, like people saying things that are just obviously fake. But I'm starting to think about geometric unity now, and that's pretty cool. But I'm finding so much math in my models, and I want to talk about it. So let me pull up numbermatics. Because definitely want that, and then we also want probably 506 number. Actually, it's 216. Because I found some fascinating gravy, my friends. Okay, so basically, let's look at this. This is the model that I primarily want to focus on. And what's fascinating about this model is that, let me just pull up the chat so that I can see. Spring is the beginning of life. Yeah, that is true. I guess if April Fool's is the beginning of spring, then I do like April Fool's. That's nice. Spring is very nice. It was a beautiful day today. I went for a walk with my fiance and our dogs this morning. It was very nice. Oh, it's piping hot gravy. So there's a lot to unpack here. I spent literally hours listening to Robert Edward Grant discuss numbers today, and if that doesn't get you, just like spinning around mathematics, then I don't know what will. But so this is my cosmological verse, and it's calculating. This is a calculating model. Not all models are calculating. Some of them are just like this, where it's not calculating. It has a number that represents a specific perspective of the quantum of consciousness. So a 1 that is white represents oneness without. A 1 that is gray represents outside. 2 represents separate. And 3 represents inside. And 4 represents singularity. And when we're looking at the calculating model, as I've showed before, when we get 4 here as the top, you get 84 here. And when you divide 84 by 4, you get 21. When you take the sum of the entirety of the last quantum of consciousness model that is quantum of consciousness is being calculated, this is essentially what philosophy calls a holon. Okay? So we're going to touch on that tonight, but a holon is basically an entity that is considered singular unto itself, so like a crystal structure. One human is a holon. One cell is a holon. One molecule is a holon. One atom is a holon. And I call them quanta of consciousness, but they are essentially holons. But when you take this final holon and you sum it, you get 399. And when you do the same thing here, you get 19, which is exactly what the original quantum of consciousness value is. And when you take 399 divided by 19, you get 21. So here you're getting 21, which is 399 divided by 19. And here you're getting 21, which is 84 divided by 4. What's interesting about this is that it mirrors creation in that 2/3 of the energy is left to God, so 2, and 1. 2 by 1, essentially. And so you could say 2 and 1. And this is God, and this is creation. Okay, so we're going to take this as a sum of a whole. Then you go and you take this and you divide by that, and you take this and you divide by that. So there's, it's very nice to just be working in Excel. I don't do this on our streams very often, but you can see here existence, creation, God. And this 21 mirrors creation. It's also 7 times 3, which is interesting because 7 is a very primal number. It's it's on the 7th day God rests, or the 7th period God rests. We have the Sabbath on the 7th day. It's a prime number after 6. It's very interesting. It's the only number that when you divide, it's not the only one, but when you take 720 and you divide it by 1 and then 2 and then 3 and 4 and 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you get very predictable, solid values, except when you divide by 7, and then you get an infinitely repeating decimal. But what's interesting about this is that when you add 21 here and 21 here, you get 42, which is symmetrical to how you can also get 42 from the structure below. So, which is, I know some of you know this, but I'm just catching people up that don't. When you add self-awareness, which is 33, it's a 3x3 grid looking at itself in the mirror. We're going to talk about this in a minute. It's an extra-arithmetic symmetry, or superliteral. It sees 3x3. And so when you add the value of the calculation to the structure that the calculation took place in, so an awareness of self with 33 plus the construct that gave rise to the awareness of self, which is the count here of 9. I guess this would be count. You get 42. And essentially what this number represents is wisdom. And that's because it shows that you're aware of yourself in the hierarchy. 42 is 21. It's the same as 33, which is 3x3. So 3 plus 3 is 6, and 4 plus 2 is 6. They're both binary trialities, but one is viewing yourself as equal to, as equal, which is 3x3, which is 33. This one is viewing the self and God as different in value, okay? Different in hierarchy. One is 2/3 of the other, and this one shows 1/3 and 2/3, just like we see with creation. It's just an awareness of hierarchy, is what it is. It's super literal. It is an extra-arithmetic symmetry. But we can see that here. But what's really interesting is that when I started messing with 33 today, and the past couple weeks, 33 is 24 plus 9. So as you can see here, 9, 6, and 3, Tesla said 3, 6, 9. Right here, this is addition of these numbers that are being calculated via a symmetrical structure. I'm going to teach you guys how to do this tomorrow in the Discord. I'm going to teach you how to make this entire calculating model. I will speak to you through the entire process. You can share your screen. You can do it on Google Sheets. You don't even need Excel, but if you do have Excel, that's awesome. But this is multiplication, as you can see here. It's this one times this one times this one. Same thing here. And you can see here and here, 6 is the only one that's repeated, just like 42 is 4 and 2, which is 6, and 33 is 3 and 3, which is also 6. When you add 24 to 9, you get 33. When you multiply 24 and 9, you get 216. What's interesting about 216 is it's this. It's a lot more than this too, but it is also this. It's 6 times 6 times 6. It's also this. This is some of the information that I gathered today on it. 216 is the smallest number, n, for which n minus 3, n minus 2, and n minus 1, and n plus 1, and n plus 2, and n plus 3 are all semi-primes. And also, it is the smallest cube that is also the sum of 3 cubes. That is fascinating. It's also the number of right here. This is the 10 Sephirot. It is the number of Gevura, which is sovereignty, essentially, is what it represents. It represents your separateness. Okay? Sovereignty is separateness. That's all it means. And you are sovereign. So this is the 10 Sephirot, basically. And I've been looking at quantum mechanics, as you can see here, and kind of lining it up. And also looking at other parts of quantum mechanics. And, you know, this is the various types of gluons. And this is, you know, the quark, the positive or masculine quarks here, the negative or feminine quarks here, and the electrons and neutrinos down the center. And what's interesting about this, though, is that we can basically show that this also lines up with our 4 fundamental perspectives. And there's got to be, I'm trying to figure out like the math of how it all fits together, but the value, the numerical value of sovereignty is apparently 216 in Kabbalah. And I don't know what the others are. I tried looking and I don't know. They're not as obvious. I don't know why. I don't like study Kabbalah. Like, I just look at something when if I come across something, I take note of it. But I don't like read the Zohar or anything like that. I can't read Aramaic. But I did notice that, and it's just interesting. But the fact that this is 6 times 6 times 6, it's also, I believe, it's doing a lot of work today, so we'll ease into it. But yeah, it's 72 times 3. And 72 is a number, or 720, both of those numbers symbolize like infinite or abundant. It's like why 72 and 720 are the, you know, places that you end up in the periodicity of the rotations of the universe or of the verse, and it's always at the very beginning and the very end. So, and the transition between the finite and the infinite, you get 720 or 72, which is really the same exact number. It's just, are you looking at it from the inside out or the outside in? But this number that I found here is fascinating. of 216. I am still trying to wrap my head around exactly what it means, like in its entirety. And we're gonna, I'm sharing my work. This is like a working session, so we can do this just to make it obvious what's going on. There. So, yeah, very interesting. But it's not where it ends. I mean, there's so much, guys. I'm trying to like pick what I should show you even. But we look. So this is how you visualize numbers. And when I look at numbers, I'm always looking at this website, Numbermatics, because it visually shows a number, its prime factorization, its divisors, and it kind of just it's easy to relate this to this. It's easy for me to make sense of it because this has 8 divisors. 1, 2, 3, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. This is 8 divisors. Interestingly enough, 8 is an infinity symbol flipped. And when you look at this kind of looks like an 8. It's a, it's a loop. But it's continuing, so basically it would be like this. Hopefully I can do this correctly. Oh man, I tried. Yeah, weird. But this is repeating. I don't know why it's giving me trouble. Huh. Yeah, won't let me do it. I have to like change a bunch of stuff. But you can see it's repeating, and it would continue and continue and continue, and there would be one inside the next, inside the next, inside the next. But this periodicity of 8 is how we move from the finite to the infinite. And this number is found everywhere. I mean, when you look at even animals, and you look, other than centipedes and millipedes, which I'm gonna have to examine because there's various different numbers of legs, and also some weird worms. But when you look at, cephalopods and arachnids, there's always 8 limbs. And on the outermost ring of an atom, the highest number of electrons that you can have is also 8. Which is not a coincidence with, why do octopuses, yeah, that's correct, octopuses, you can say octopuses or octopi, I think, have 8 limbs. Because it's the highest number that they can have within the construct that they are, essentially. And I'm still working on what that construct is. Why does a spider have 8 limbs and an octopus have 8 limbs, but not a millipede? I don't know yet. But I think it has to do with manipulation. And when you think about, I've talked to you guys before about how when you move your arm, it is a wave. You're causing a wave to form through the multiplicity of your cells to grab a hold of whatever that you want to grab a hold of, or maneuver however you want to maneuver. This is a wave function. And this is also true of when an octopus moves its arms. And that's exactly what electrons really are. There's not actually lots of electrons. It's just you can see lots of electrons, but it's really one electron and it's a wave. But another interesting number that I came across is this, which is 506. 506 is the sum of 4, 84, 19, and 399. And I didn't really think this was a very interesting number, but it does have a 0 in the middle. And Robert Edward Grant is like, he's very, very fascinated with the combination of 5 and 6. Like, he spent a long time telling me about it once. And to be honest, it was kind of lost on me. But when I found this, I was like, that's interesting. There is this combination of 5 and 6, which when you add them together, it is 11, which is 1 by 1, which is... Oh, what happened to you? Let's fix this. It's 1 by 1. Okay? Or it would be the other way. It would be 1 by 1. It's like 1 coming from 1. Okay, so 1 by means like to come from. So in this instance, so 11 represents 1 by 1. We can see that when we're looking at the periodicity of the universe. It's not just like something I made up. Over here, you can basically see that it's going through these periods of growth, and then once it hits 11, it restarts the growth period in the next universe. So that's when you've achieved like complete replication, and it's 1 by 1, basically. So it's fascinating. So this would be like actually, this will be interesting. So this would be 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, and it would be 9, 9, and then this would be like, I don't know what that would be, 10, 10, 11, 11. I don't even think that's correct, but because it'd probably be like, I mean, I guess it would have to be 4 because you can't really jump to 3 and still get a repeating number here. But you can see it does the exact same thing. This number 8 is infinity flipped on its side. And infinity flipped on its side is a number 8. This is another extra-arithmetic symmetry. It's a shifted perspective on infinity. So, like, a lot of times we have people, especially, Lex Friedman, he loves to ask this question. He's like, how do you perceive infinity? What do you think about infinity? Do you think that we can even conceptualize it? It's actually super, super easy to conceptualize. Infinity means infinite growth. When you don't contextualize infinity in the context of infinite growth of multiplicity, then you actually just arrive at a nonsense structure. This is why you can't conceptualize infinity the way that Lex Friedman wants to, and that's why he can't do it, and that's why he's fascinated by it. But he shouldn't be fascinated by it. It's like trying to think of something that's impossible to even exist conceptually. That's not interesting. I mean, it's interesting that can even occur. Most people don't even think about that as being possible to, have occur. But it does occur. It's, when I first started this work years ago, one of the things that I realized is that I knew when I was onto something if when I had a thought, it would literally like, it sounds weird, but it would like tickle my brain almost. It was like, it was, it was like it was like my mind realized that there was more to the idea than what I was able to currently contemplate, but uh, but it couldn't contemplate it in a single moment. You had to break it into, periods essentially, and contemplate it step by step. This is not true when you just try and contemplate something that seems like such a vast idea, like infinity. Try and think of infinity right now, not in the context of growth, but just infinite existence. It's like you can't. It doesn't tickle your brain. It doesn't give you this feeling of, oh my gosh, there's more. And I attribute that feeling to basically my mind being overwhelmed. It's like when your computer tries to think of something or run a program that is actually a coherent program, but it's just requires too much processing power than you can currently give. That was what I was experiencing essentially. And I mean, it's a little more complicated than that, but it's essentially that. But when you try and think of infinity outside the concept of growth or the context of growth, you can't. It doesn't. It's like almost like you're thinking and then, or you try and think and then you just hit a wall, and you just can't think any further than that. It's not even that it's hard to think. It's not using a lot of processing power. It's using no processing power. This is something that we really need to, like, I don't know, contextualize as time goes on. This is another one of those things that's almost like a bad question or a stupid question. Is like, what do you think about infinity? It's like, what do you mean, like infinite growth? No, like infinity, just existent infinity. It's like, that doesn't exist. God is one. He's infinite in his growth of multiplicity that he's creating, but outside that multiplicity, he's actually not infinite. He's just finite. Now, he is total, but total is different than being infinite, which is, continuing. Infinite is continuous. Total is not continuous. And this is another, like, one of those things that just like it's so much simpler than we make it. But anyways, rant over. This 8 being infinity is not meaningless. It is an extra-arithmetic symmetry. So let's do this. Extra I don't know how to spell arithmetic. I'm going to look it up. Don't judge me. I've looked it up like 4 times today. There are some words that I just can't even. Because they're just too odd. Terrible joke. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Jim Bob, but I was talking to him earlier today and he was making all kinds of dad jokes. It's kind of in my mind. But symmetry, which is also super, can't really put it there, but we'll do it here. Okay, so an extra-arithmetic symmetry is super literal. Okay. I don't even remember if that was, I think it was me that came up with it once on a stream here. It might have been somebody else on the stream, but it's such a great term. I've never heard anybody use that, but if they already have, then we're taking it back. But this is a concept that we have to reincorporate into mathematics. And I was hesitant to name the stream something regarding numerology because it has such a negative connotation, and people, whenever they see the term numerology, they just think that it's pseudoscience. Pseudoscience is another stupid word. It's not a stupid question, but it is a stupid word, like esoteric. And it doesn't exist. It's like infinity outside the concept of the context of growth. It doesn't exist. It's just a stupid concept or a stupid idea or a stupid question or a stupid word. There are, they tell you there's no stupid questions when you're young. You're not stupid for asking questions. It's smart to ask questions. There are stupid questions, though. And I've asked plenty of stupid questions. That's how I know which ones are stupid. So I'm not judging, but there are definitely stupid questions. And the idea that there isn't it's just wrong. There's no stupid questioners, but there are stupid questions. So, just for the fun of it, numerology. Let's look at see what numerology is defined as objectively. I've never even looked it up. Numerology. Not to be confused with number theory. Numerology is any belief in the divine or mystical relationship between a number and one or more coinciding events. It is also the study of numerical value in letters or words, names, ideas. It is associated with the paranormal. I hate that word. Alongside astrology and other similar divinatory arts. Inspired by God. Okay. Despite the long history of numerological ideas, the word numerology is not recorded in English before 1907. Wow, that's interesting. Pythagoras and other philosophers of the time believed that because mathematical concepts were more practical, easier to regulate and classify than physical ones, they had greater actuality. Numbers are the universal language offered by the deity to humans as confirmation of the truth. Similar to Pythagoras, he too believed that everything had numerical relationships, and it was up to the mind to seek and investigate the secrets of these relationships, or have them revealed by divine grace. Since numerology and church fathers for early Christian beliefs on the subject. Okay. Lack of evidence. Skeptics argue that numbers have no occult significance and cannot by themselves influence a person's life. I don't even know what that means. Skeptics, therefore, regard numerology as a superstition, which is a belief or practice typically resulting from ignorance or misunderstanding of science or causality. That's going to be funny. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And pseudoscience. Pseudoscience consists of statements, beliefs, practices that claim to be both scientific and factual, but are incompatible with the scientific method. Well, there isn't really a scientific method. Eric Weinstein has been harping on this for a long time, and he's actually right, and I appreciate that he has been saying this, but there isn't a scientific method, and maybe we'll look later, and him and Max Tegmark were having a discussion with, I think, Brian Keating, and they said, science is anything that you use to get to the truth. Whether that is revelation, or numerology, or the scientific method, or experimentation, or philosophy, or logic, or mathematics, it doesn't matter. Philosophy, all of that is science. Beauty, it's all science. I don't know how much I agree. I mean, I do agree with that, actually. Science, objectively, would be like trying to find out the truth via interpretation. That's what it is. And scripture would be, or religion would be, essentially trying to know the truth by basically deferring to scriptural authority, I would say. But science would be trying to determine the truth however you need to. There is a scientific method. There is, that is true. But the idea that there is even such a thing as pseudoscience is, this word should be wiped from the dictionary. I used to think esoteric was the worst word in the world. I've definitely changed my mind. I might have to make a new video. This is the worst word in the world. It's just such nonsense. But for now, we have to play the game. And numerology has negative connotations with people. So sometimes you need to reinvent a new term that also conveys the meaning more directly and easily than numerology does today, which I love the term numerology, actually. The more I think about it, it's better than mathematics. It's way better than mathematics. I don't know what really mathematics is. If somebody told me arithmetic is not mathematics, and then I don't know what mathematics is. If it's not numerology, it's not arithmetic. I don't really think there's anything in between other than just mathematics would then be a language, not actually, so specifically regarding calculation. It would be the language to describe certain calculations, but it's not actually the calculations themselves. So, but numerology, it's about numbers. And this idea of extra-arithmetic symmetries, it shows that there's symmetry that is linking math with things outside of math. Okay, that's what I'm trying to show with this term. And super literal would be things that are beyond literally true, like 3 by 3, or a 3 by 3 grid looking at itself in the mirror sees 3 by 3, so it sees 33. Or like 432 is 42 divided by 3, because it's literally 4 and 2 divided by a 3. Like super literally dividing down the center. Which is interesting because that's the first page of the gospel. But that would be a super literal or an extra arithmetic symmetry. It's a symmetry between linguistics and mathematics, essentially. Eric Weinstein talks about this a lot. He's like, the square root allows for the prediction of information in a system from outside the system. Okay, so that's why it's such an amazing mathematical operation. And when you realize that this and this and this are all squares, and this is a square, it itself is a square root. But it's not a square root the way that we think about the square root of, in terms of calculation, like, I think that's a square root. Let's test it. Yeah, so like that's a square root in Excel, but you know what it is. It's a square root. You can't really do that symbol here in Excel, but you have to do it in a formula like I just showed you. But what's special about it is that it allows you to make prediction about information in a system from outside that system. And this and this and this are all squares that are the roots of the building of consciousness in creation, and they're squares, so they're square roots. It's that in and of itself is super literal. It is an extra arithmetic symmetry in and of itself. I'm gonna look up arithmetic. The branch of mathematics dealing with the properties and manipulation of numbers. I thought that was all mathematics. This is why I literally, I come from the biology world, like particularly herpetology, like reptiles and amphibians. The amount of times that I have seen people change subspecies into full species and full species into subspecies over the past 20 years would blow your mind. They can't, like, what is it, a taxonomist? They can't keep things straight. Everybody wants to change the names of everything, and I think it's basically a pissing contest, because if they don't do that, then what else are they going to do? We don't discover brand new species all the time anymore. We do discover new species, but not to the degree that would, keep all biologists and taxonomists entertained. And I also think that there's this, I know that there is this obvious, what is it? Nepotistic aspect to it, naming things after your friends and whatever. But, or just naming things in and of itself. This, I think, is also what's happened with mathematics, because there's just so, if this is not the definition of mathematics, then I don't know what it is. Like, what is mathematics? Guys, we're so lost. Is the science that deals with the logic of shape, quantity, and arrangement. Math is all around us in everything we do. Okay, that's nice. Study of quantity, number theory, structure algebra, space geometry, and change analysis. Okay, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, at least there's 4. But it has no generally accepted definition. That's my issue, guys. This little hilarious bit, it's less defined than numerology. And that's a problem. But what's interesting, though, about this, numerology and extra arithmetic symmetries and superliteral is that it gets to this place that we need to get to if we're going to have mathematics that describes existence, and that is one in which we transcend relativity, where numbers have relativistic meaning, whereas, they are assigned value based on their relationships with other things. So, a foot. A foot is not an objective measurement. It's a subjective measurement. We made it, And it's, well, what is a foot? It's 12 inches. Okay, well, what is an inch? See what I'm saying? Like, it just keeps going. This is a relativistic measurement, and or relativistic metric, I think you would call it. All math is like that. If you have 0 apples, you have 0 apples. It requires you to add that context in order to if I just said you have 0, it's like, you have 0 what? What does that even mean? But if I say you have 0 apples and you have no apples, then there's context provided and 0 is given meaning. If you're going to describe existence outside of relativity, outside of dependency, then math and numbers, not math, yeah, I guess math, but numbers as well, no longer have subjective meaning, they have objective meaning, which means one really does mean something. 3 really does mean something outside of math. Guys, that's numerology. It's numerology. And that is it is such an obvious logical inevitability that numerology is probably one of the truest sciences out there. But the issue is that we've been stuck in relativity for decades, and we don't have the square root to contextualize these numbers and actually see their objective meaning. And you can do that with these structures, actually. But prior to these structures existing, you couldn't do it. And so I understand why people will say that's pseudoscience, and or not science, or whatever. Because I don't know how people who write on these numerology websites tell me what that, I don't know, 216 symbolizes that I have abundance coming my way or something like that. Outside of these structures, I have no idea how they would do that. I mean, I do actually know how they would do that. They would deduce basically this kind of general structure, and that's why it's not as exact, and not as consistent. Same thing with astrology, but you can still deduce. If you're a philosopher, a metaphysicist, you can be like, starting from the monad and, moving to multiplicity, and you can do that stuff. But it's outside of these structures that are really defined, containing of structure, containing of multiplicity, containing of relationships, and are objective structures, you can't really give numbers meaning. But in a way that's consistent. People can do it, and some people get closer than others, but you can't really trust how they did it either, because who knows how they did it. But once we have the objective structures, numerology is making a comeback. We might have to call it something else. I think that this is what we're going to call it. It's funny because we won't say metaphysics anymore because it's considered pseudoscience. We just say quantum physics, which is the same thing as metaphysics. But Stephen Wolfram said this term, metamathematics. And we're going to look at it, actually. Oh, man. I don't know which one to choose. Let's see here. I think it's this one. Are they outside?
Following is a conversation with Stephen Wolfram. You said that there are moments in... So Thomas Kuhn, philosopher of science, describes that, the progress in science is made with these paradigm shifts. And so to linger on the sort of original line of discussion, do you agree with this view that there is revolutions in science that just kind of flip the table?
What happens is it's a different way of thinking about things. It's a different methodology for studying things. And
like this, everything that we're doing right now, it's a totally different methodology.
There's this idea of, he's a famous biographer, but I think it's called The Innovators, the biographer of Steve Jobs, of Albert Einstein.
Oh, yeah.
He also wrote a book, I think it's called The Innovators, where he discusses how a lot of the innovations in the history of computing has been done by groups. There's a complicated group dynamic going on. But there's also a romanticized notion that the individual is at the core of the revolution. Like, where does your sense fall? Is ultimately like one person responsible for these revolutions that creates the spark, or one or two, whatever, or is it just the big mush and mess and chaos of people interacting, of personalities interacting?
I think it ends up being like many things. There's leadership, and there ends up being, it's a lot easier for one person to have a crisp new idea than it is for a big committee to have a crisp new idea. Yeah. And I think but I think it can happen that, you have a great idea, but the world isn't ready for it. And, I mean, this has happened to me plenty, right? It's, you have an idea, it's actually a pretty good idea, but things aren't ready. Either you're not really ready for it, or the ambient world isn't ready for it. And it's hard to get the thing to get traction.
So he's right. It's always, everything that's objectively true is always a superposition structure. And we're going to talk about halons real quick, but this shows the superposition structure of all of these growth structures. So like there is no superposition structure of a knife. Okay, it's just a knife. There's no superposition structure of a water bottle. It's just a water bottle. But there is a superposition structure of a molecule because it has an individual leader and it also has an assembly, which is, with a molecule, it's an assembly of atoms, but we'd say individual leader and group. I don't even know what you would call it. I don't want to say disciples, but like, it's kind of like that. It's like, team, I guess. It's a team. That's what it is. That's a much better way of putting it. You have the captain of the team, and you have the team. You have the quarterback, and you have everyone else. And they're still on the same team, but there is this hierarchy that is present, and that's because, like he said, it's very difficult for... It's not very difficult. It's practically impossible for groups to make truly, I would say, quantum leaps in innovation. They can make incremental leaps, and that's what's been happening over, the course of computing for the last, few decades. But that's not the same as making quantum leaps of, progress, where we go from thinking that the Earth is... People think that, okay, here's truly the difference between a quantum leap and an incremental leap, and this will show you how crazy the leap really is. It's so unforeseen, it's always like a black swan. I mean, of course it is, because if it wasn't, other people would have, realized it was coming. But when we go from flat Earth to sphere Earth, people thought that, and still today think that's a quantum leap. It's not a quantum leap. It's actually, it's not even a progression. I mean, it's a progression, but it's also a reversion almost. It's both. It's like the binary triality system of like having two things going on. It's a spin. You're spinning. You're seeing things from different angles. A truly quantum leap is realizing that space is emergent and the Earth therefore has no objective shape. And it is dependent on you. We can stop arguing about it. Like, that's a quantum leap. And it is a black swan event. Like, nobody sees it coming except usually like very few individuals. It's never a group. There were groups of people that thought that the Earth was a sphere. There were people that worked together to calculate that it was potentially spherical when you were trying to calculate it objectively. And when you do that, even though if you are inside Earth and you are, like I said, it's a better way to think about it as inside and outside versus on or, not on Earth. But when you're inside Earth, you're standing on the ground and you try and calculate the curvature of the Earth, with using, obelisk over here and obelisk over here and measuring shadows over here and doing all the math that they did in order to originally deduce that from a certain perspective the Earth was a sphere, you're gonna see it because you're asking the question. It's like that connectrica that I show you guys. It's like when you say, "Do you see the square?" Then you see a singularity. When you say, "Do you see the squares?" You see multiplicity. Do you see the double helix? Yes. It's like, do you see the sphere? Yes, you see the sphere. Do you see the flat plane? Yes, you see the flat plane. It's the same thing. Your question determines a lot of times what you see. So if you look at a molecule and you say, "Do you see the atoms?" It's like, yes. It's like, but do you see the molecule? Yes. Both are true. But I want to see if we can get to...
Interesting. I mean, when I look at a new kind of science, you're now living inside the history, so you can't tell the story of these decades. But it seems like the new kind of science has not had the revolutionary impact I would think it might. Like, it feels like at some point, of course it might be, but it feels at some point people will return to that book and say there was something special here. This was incredible.
Look, what happened?
Or do you think that's already happened?
Oh yeah, it's happened, except that people aren't, the sort of the heroism of it may not be there. But what's happened is, for 300 years, people basically said, if you want to make a model of things in the world, mathematical equations are the best place to go. Last 15 years, doesn't happen. New models that get made of things,
This is it.
most often are made with programs, not with equations.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was that sort of going to happen anyway? Was that a consequence of, my particular work and my particular book? It's hard to know for sure. I mean, I'm always amazed at the amount of feedback that I get from people where they say, "Oh, by the way, I started doing this whole line of research because I read your book, blah, 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 blah." It's like, well, can you tell that from the academic literature? Was there a chain of, academic references? Probably not.
One of the interesting side effects of publishing in the way you did.
So
Tome.
I'll listen to this as I speak about it. But what's interesting is that he's right. And this was one of the criticisms of my work, is that they said there is no equations. I mean, there's plenty of equations. When you click on, any, this is an equation. You click on this cell, this is an equation, obviously. But it's not following the complicated mathematical language that mathematicians normally use to show, their concepts, I guess. But this is essentially a program more than anything else. And when it runs, this is a program. Okay, wait. He's talking about it. Okay.
Be a big thing that lots of people do.
Here.
You mean in mathematics purely, almost like
It's like pure mathematics, but it isn't mathematics.
But it isn't. It isn't. It's a new kind of mathematics. It's and title the book.
Yeah, right.
Good
That's
title.
why the book is called that. Right. That's not coincidental.
Yeah. It's interesting that I haven't seen really rigorous investigation by thousands of people of this idea. I mean, you look at your competition around Rule 30. I mean, that's fascinating. If you can say something,
right?
Is there some aspect of this thing that can be predicted? That's a fundamental question.
Stephen Wolfram's work is the closest to mine, I would think, in methodology. I can see the same that I seem to be getting structures that also I think are found in geometric unity. But when I look at how Stephen Wolfram does his work, he does it the closest to me.
Clean, beautiful, simple prediction may not even be possible in real systems. That's the open question.
I don't think it's open. I think that question is answered, and the answer is no.
Well, no. The answer could be just humans are not smart enough yet. Like we don't have the tools
No,
yet.
that's the whole point. I mean, that's sort of the big discovery of this principle of computational equivalence of mind, and this is something which is kind of a follow-on to Gödel's theorem, to Turing's work on the halting problem, all these kinds of things. That there is this fundamental limitation built into science, this idea of computational irreducibility, that says that even though you may know the rules by which something operates, that does not mean that you can readily sort of be smarter than it and jump ahead and figure out what it's going to do.
Yes, but do you think there's a hope for pocket?
So what he's talking about here is going to become very relevant in encryption, because it's very much linked to Robert Grant's work with one-time pad encryption, where basically with one-time pad encryption, the encryption key is the same size as the file that you're trying to encrypt. Robert Grant found a way to compress that, apparently, and I'm fascinated with how he did it. But this kind of is exactly this concept of jumping ahead and of computation, okay? And I actually think that Stephen Wolfram's wrong here. This idea, where he says computational equivalence, I think it's a superposition structure, but someone said on here, I think it was John, they said that emotion is the completion of a thought. Something like that, which is brilliant. And I think that you're going to have to make use of this subject, of this concept, in order to jump ahead of computation. You have to delve into meaning, which is what gives rise to emotions, it is what contextualizes thought that allows for, the arising of emotions. If you can utilize emotions, you can actually jump ahead. I think that this is the square root idea. It's like, it lets you predict information from outside the system. You can do that, and you can bypass computational equivalence, but you have to be a feeling entity, a sentient being, in order to do it. You can't have a computer do it, because our current computers are not sentient. They have no feelings. You have to have feelings to do it. You have to know the goal before the process. And the goal is easy to know if you can feel. It's like, well, you think about, the goal for society. It's like, okay, well, imagine there's no feelings, and now you try and think purely without feeling, just you're a computer trying to think about the goal for the universe, and you have no emotional value attached to humans or sentience or animals or beauty or anything like that. That's gonna just leave you trying to calculate the totality of the structure, which is computational equivalence. You'll have to calculate the entire thing. But if you're going to basically see to the end of the computation before computing, it doesn't mean you don't need to compute anymore, but depending on what you're doing, but in order to know what will happen when you do compute, you have to be able to feel. And he says science has not figured out, a way of transcending computational equivalence. I think that these models will allow for that via what we are calling superliteral definitions, or superliteral context, or extra-arithmetic symmetries. It is the objective meaning that is pervasive and underlying of all existence. And that comes from feeling, which is why I went with Sentient Singularity Theory instead of like Chris Langan's cognitive theoretic model of the universe. It's like, is the universe, if it's a mind, is it cognitive? Yes. But is that all it is? Is that most fundamentally what it is? No. It's more than anything, it is feeling. And feeling is what gives contextualization to thought, and that is the only way where you can kind of transcend computational equivalence. If I asked you, what is the goal of the universe? You can start to describe it to me, even though you haven't calculated the entire universe in your head. If I was like, Chris, what's the goal of our government? Even, it's like you're immediately thinking about people. Why? Because you have feelings for people. You're not thinking about GDP. Why? Because you have feelings for people. It is contextualized the problem for you in a way that allows you to kind of not have to compute the entirety of what is existent and feeding into the structure in order to actually kind of start to make sense of the structure itself. You can immediately say the goal of, life would be, first you would be like, to be happy. Then it's like, well, also to, replicate. It's like, oh, also to help other people. It's like all these things are centered around people and yourself and your own feelings and the feelings of others. Nothing is centered around, well, this pure, pure data, like detached data. Nothing is centered around that. Nothing is like, well, we're going to try and maximize GDP. I got into a discussion last night, and it was with people on one of the Discords, and they were talking about economics, and I interrupted, and I was like, okay, wait, guys, because they were talking about whether or not investing is good, because, does it drive the prices up? Does it lower GDP? Does it increase GDP? And I stopped them, and they were kind of asking whether or not this was objectively good for society. And somebody was like, well, what if it brings people's wages down? It's like, well, why is that important? And so I interjected and I said, if you're trying to maximize growth and consumption, then you have to maximize those that grow goods via labor, which is people, and those that consume. So those that produce and those that consume at the same time. And this essentially, when you look at history, places families as the nuclear family as the central economic unit, because people don't have babies outside of the nuclear family that grow up to be, a self-perpetuating structure and self-regulating structure. So it places the family unit at the center, and I asked, maybe we should be measuring economic growth via something other than GDP, which is a relativistic metric. GDP is literally, I looked it up last night. I mean, I know what it is, but, I brushed up on it. It's the total monetary and market value of all finished goods and services produced within a country's borders. You're defining all the things' value, everything's value, which is, by the way, all things, all goods that we perceive for the most part are all subjective structures. A knife, a car, dice, dominoes, water bottles. These are all subjective perspectives. They're not actually objective. So you're still stuck in a subjective economy from there. And then you go and you assign it an arbitrary metric, which is, dollars or Bitcoin or something else. And which is always based on something else. This is economics in the theory of relativity. Economics in the theory of objectivity is going to be, and I started working on it, and I'll show you. It's going to be family centered. So I started trying to figure out calculations to give rise to values based on the structure of a family, which is, always one husband and probably up to 4 wives, but usually one wife, and then children. And this is a structure that at different points is leaning more towards either consumers or producers, but at the same time, always both. And so this is a much more objective way to think about economics, and I started mapping it. I'm not done, obviously. Just started this last night. But, you can see that this is obviously off to a much better start and going to give us a much more accurate reading on growth than GDP, which is just a bullshit metric. But I'm going to check questions now because I've been going for a bit. But I do want to get to this part where Stephen Wolfram talks about meta-mathematics. But let's see your questions first. How many people are viewing? 8, that's pretty cool. It's infinity, right? Okay, there's so many questions. Oh my gosh. The fool is the beginning and ending of wisdom. That's true. Once upon a time, these idiots believed the year started in April. And they were burned at the stake hilariously. Spring is the beginning of life. 42 boy. Yeah, 42. Remember when convicted rapist Bill Cosby asked Seth MacFarlane's Stewie Griffin that his father's age was, and he insisted. He responded 42. I don't remember that. Okay. This is a conversation. Infinity is adding and multiplication at the same time at a set interval. Exactly. That's true. It's the creation of multiplicity. The perpetuation of multiplicity. I found Tyler on Robert Edward Grant Instagram. Cool. I'm trying to have him on maybe next week. He's very busy, but we keep making plans for it and then it just falls through. But it will happen. Next week, by the way, I'm having discussions with 2 people. One of them is Will Roosh, who I have discussed things with before on I have it on my personal stream. So I don't know what that is, but this is my personal channel. For those of you who might be interested, I don't have much on there right now, but I will have more like political things on there. There's a hilarious video of a spider. We can watch that real quick, probably in a minute. It's only a minute and 30 seconds, but this is my conversation with Will Roosh. He is a teacher, and he's very dedicated towards like advancing education and actual learning and overcoming a lot of the issues that are currently in education. And somehow he has done this without getting fired, and it just blows my mind. But I will be discussing education with him and learning on, I think, Tuesday. Yeah. So Tuesday, it will. I'll let you know what time, but Tuesday of next week, I'll be discussing education and learning with him. And then on Friday, or on Thursday, I will be having a discussion with Nico Meyer, who is a amazing artist. He does a lot of mathematical art. Nico Meyer art. He will be, his interview will definitely be on this stream, and so will on this channel and my personal channel, Theory of Every0ne and Tyler Goldstein. So will my discussion with Will Roosh. But Nico Meyer makes incredible art, and it's geometric, Like, look at this real quick. This is so cool. I can't wait to have him on here. I've been talking to him for a long time. Him and I have discussed this for probably almost a year, and it just hasn't happened. But look at this. This is so cool. This is like a serpent. And it's switching between red on yellow, kill a fellow, and red on black, venom black. It's switching between a milk snake and a coral snake as it spins. So awesome. But he's going to be on Thursday, and I'm going to discuss where he gets his inspiration and stuff. But here's some of his work. It's a hop vibration, and it's very cool. There's something let me show you one more that he did that I just love. Wow, he's done a lot of work. Here. It's a hop vibration. This is the structure of mind. We're going to discuss this on Thursday. Maybe he can help us with some animations. That would be awesome. Because he did this. I mean, he does all these. Love the music and sounds that he puts to his art too, but oh, this one, I love this. This is what I wanted to show you.
Holy are you, holy are you. There's no God but you. There is no God but you. Praise be the Lord. Holy are you, holy are you. There is no God but you. Holy are you.
So there you go. It's a little sneak preview of what's coming next week. So lots planned. Okay. Back to questions. I just became aware of an isopod, and that looks like a centipede. Yeah, and isopods are very cool. I have isopods in my cages. That's another one I need to look at, isopods. It's octopi and octopuses, I think. Octopilar. Eggshell, okay. Liked his models a lot, haven't been able to look away. That is what I'm talking about, John. Like, it's beautiful. I've been listening to also this stream with, what's her name? Sabine Hassenfelder and Brian Keating today as well. And it's just, I don't know. I didn't like it, to be honest. And I mean, I've spoken to you guys before about this, and like, this is something scientists have not really realized. And there are scientists who are women and women, we have to have a path to be a scientist for women, but they do deal with things differently than men, and that is something that we need to be aware of in how they interact with us. But I don't know. I just don't. I feel like the entirety of science right now is just in that war state. It's like still men are at war with women, but we'll say it's, it's the people who believe in the scientific method and cohesive groups working together versus people who believe that however you get to the truth is however you need to get to the truth, and that you essentially need to start this process as an individual. The reality is that, like I showed you, it's a superposition structure that makes everything move forward, but there is always a leader, and it's not the person who thinks that we need to collaborate alone. That doesn't mean, I mean, I would consider myself obviously a leader in this, even though very small movement at this point, growing audience, but small audience compared to many other players in this. But we've been at this for a much shorter period of time, but I do constantly say that we do need the people who are discussing these theories of everything to start talking to each other, because right now everybody's calling each other's theories of everything, and they're not even discussing what that really means. And if we don't have those discussions with each other, then we're not even going to find out that sentient singularity theory is the theory of everything. It's the theory of Every0ne, and that a theory of everything doesn't exist, and that what people are calling theories of everything are close, but they're actually not. Like emergence theory and geometric unity. It's a little bit of a joking dig, but it's true though. We do need to assemble these ideas, because it is necessary that we have geometric unity, we have emergence theory, we have Watson and Crick's double helix, we have singularity convergence theory from Robert Grant. Like there's lots of these theories that we do need, and we need to put them into context, because none of them are a theory of everything. None of them are the leading head consciousness of this assembly, other than sentient singularity theory. Because, as I said, all the others suffer from the problem of what Stephen Wolfram was discussing, computational equivalence, because they're not taking feeling into account as the primary way of understanding. And that is the way in which you can actually overcome computational equivalence. And so that's why sentient singularity theory is the head. But it doesn't delve into the details as much as, like, I'm sure Stephen Wolfram's computational universe or something. Like there's so much math in that, and same with geometric unity, that's just not in, I mean, it's in sentient singularity theory, but it's buried and we have to dig it out. And I found a lot of it, but I'm not going to find all of it, which is why I'm going to teach you guys how to make the quantum of consciousness tomorrow in the Discord. People who use the word pseudoscience. People who use the word pseudoscience are pseudo-scientists. They're the only ones who are pseudoscientists. And we only have woodland alligator lizards and forest alligator lizards. I don't know what that's a reference to, but alligator lizards are awesome. Guys should look up this alligator lizard. I'll just look it up. You guys can look at it. Talk about like a mechanistic looking creature. Look at that thing. It's like a little machine. I still remember the first time I ever saw a photo of one of those. It's probably like 8. And then I didn't see another one for like 10 years. They literally look like they're made of metal. Look at that. It's just amazing. Alligator lizards are cool. But back to questions. Theory of Every0ne Discord. I wasn't the Theory of Every0ne Discord that I was discussing economics with. It was a different Discord. This guy gets recommended to me a lot, but I forget his name. Stephen Wolfram. Definitely check him out. But he does a lot of the very long streams like this every single day, doing working sessions. And he kind of like rambles like me. He like can't keep a straight thought. He sounds like me too. It's kind of funny. I don't really follow his work very closely, but whenever I do like check in on him, I'm like, dude, I get you. kill a fellow pattern has always looked better to me. It does look better. And we can actually, that makes sense why that's the case. It's because it appears more colorful because you're touching the two colors together of yellow and red versus them being separated by black. Is she the one with the song? Sabine Hassenfelder? Yeah, she's the one with the song. All you men with theories of everything. Right here. For those of you that have never heard Sabine's song. And I actually love the song. So not ripping on her for the song. And I totally admire her bravery for singing online. And the type of singing that she does, like, it's very brave. And she's not bad at it at all.
Hi guys, as you can see,
I just love this.
and here, I'm here today with the serious microphone and about Eric Weinstein's Geometric Unity in particular.
I think she's German.
Eric let me know that he was disappointed with the video because it is not a particularly catchy tune, and that's entirely correct. Also, he was too polite to say it, but I mispronounced his name.
So good.
Take me some time because my brain is really small. Some people can explain it all. You and me, the universe, and everything. Theories, and shame on you if you don't think it all. They've come to save the world. They've come to help, and all of them can do my job better than myself. All you guys with theories of everything. Travel. Your theories I need. I hope they will succeed. But please, don't send them to me.
We never have. That's the guy we were just listening to. Fact. We'll let her get through this. So, she's touching on something that I want to actually talk about, which she talked about also today in the discussion that I saw her have with Brian Keating. And it is essentially, let's give you guys something interesting to look at. It's not just there. Then that these theories have no use. Will she ever get married? I don't know. I hope so. She's talented. You know, I'm not gonna make feminist jokes, but like I wasn't gonna make a crude joke. By the way, I was gonna make a joke about, you know, like making dinner or something like that, not anything gross. And but like I'll just say it because now everybody thinks it's going to be so offensive if they ever listen to this. But I was going to make a joke about how if you can memorize mathematical formulas, then you can memorize recipes too. But that's it. It's very innocent. But I hope she gets married. I don't know if she is. Maybe she is married, actually. I hope she's married. But I don't think so. She is German. Maybe she is not, maybe she's not common. Maybe she's queer. Maybe she's not attracted to men. I don't know. But she clearly has, you know, a purpose in this world that is different than most women. Most women are not involved in, you know, discussions of cosmology that are serious, and most women don't have men sending them their theories of everything. And she does. But she was saying that these theories are useless to Brian Keating. And Brian Keating was like, yeah, you know, the last thing we need is another theory of everything. Which is true. We don't need another theory of everything. We have plenty of contenders, and, you know, when we need to start breaking down which one would be true via having discussions that are public and between the people who have come up with these theories, which we started to do. Brian Keating did with Stephen Wolfram and Eric Weinstein and Garrett Lisi and Eric Weinstein. Like, that's a start, but we need to go beyond that, because we need to start including people like Nassim Haramein. Like you do. You have to start including him. You have to include me. You have to include both of us. And I understand we have to also do the work, but you can't say Nassim Haramein has not done the work. That guy has done an enormous amount of work, more than me by far, as much almost as other people who are in this space. And like, why is he not allowed to be included? I understand. I think that you also need to probably, it would be helpful to include, or it'd be nice at least to include Chris Langan, but I also understand why that is really hard. It's, if anybody actually has a theory that would be close to, you know, a theory of everything other than sentient singularity theory, it would be that. But his is, it's almost too detailed and encompassing. I don't even know, but I don't really know, to be honest. Like, it's very hard to get objective information out regarding it, because what he puts out there public is very, very short, and what is private seems to be expansive. And that's fine, but it does make it difficult. So, but you need to allow other people into this discussion. And like, the fact that we're not it's hindering everybody. It's almost like, why is emergence theory not making any, why is it not being accepted as the theory of everything? You know, I'm in these physics discords. I never hear anybody say Clea Irwin's name. They didn't even know who he was when I brought him up. And these are physics people. I have never heard Brian Keating mention Clea Irwin. I might ask him to have Clea Irwin on, actually. I think I am going to ask him to have, if he'd be interested in having Clea Irwin or on, and then maybe Nassim Haramein, but I don't think he would be. I mean, Brian Keating is brave. I don't know if he's brave enough to have Nassim Haramein on. That would be like, if Brian Keating or Eric Weinstein or any of those people who have PhDs engage with Nassim Haramein, that would be the ultimate act of bravery, because he doesn't have a PhD, but he is clearly rigorous and talented and you know, knowledgeable. And if they're never going to speak to Nassim Haramein, I don't know how they're going to speak to me, but I'm also way more cantankerous than Nassim Haramein. So, I mean, eventually I'll probably make it so they don't have a choice. But I've started that process already. But I do want to see them engage with Nassim Haramein even before they engage with me. I'm more in the infancy of this, and I'd love to see how they approach somebody else who doesn't have a PhD, but who does have actually PhD level physics knowledge, which I don't, but Nassim Haramein does. Glass snakes are related to alligator lizards. Yes, they are. Yeah, I mean, Sabine is strange for a female. That song is strange. Of course, she's strange. She's involved in physics. This is like the most masculine space you could be. But credit to her for doing it. She's not meant to be the person who comes up with, these objective theories, but she is definitely somebody who is useful in the conversation, even if that is not just to be, but to largely be refuted in her statements about, beauty not being the way towards truth, following beauty not being the way towards truth, which is wrong, or the claim that these theories of everything are useless. They're not useless. Eric Weinstein thinks that it will allow us to jump into warp speed. That's possible. If we can jump into warp speed, these are how we would do it. Probably it would be like Geometric Unity, Sentient Singularity Theory, and like Stephen Wolfram's work that would probably most pioneer that. Once I heard Stephen Wolfram talk about how you would do warp transportation, and he did it, he said exactly what I think, which he was like, well, when you think about entanglement spaces, now you've just reduced it to an engineering problem, and you just have to find out which particles and spaces are entangled with others, and that's how I think of it too. But you need inside, outside, separate, and oneness in order to do that. The 4 primary perspectives, which would help you map yourself objectively in an environment. So like you are separate from your friend, but inside of the universe, and outside of your cells, but one with your mother. It's like you need that kind of coordinates. The type of coordination, actually, that's almost a super literal statement, coordination between consciousnesses in order to get the correct coordinates in order to make a jump. But you would also, I think, need permission in order to not have serious repercussions. I don't know how to do that, but just saying. CTMU, from what I understand, was being worked on in the 80s, so I've so far seen nothing to even put a dent in the CTMU. Yeah, the CTMU is like, it's so vast because he's been working on that for so long. Like, I'm not trying to take away from what Chris Langan has done. I'm saying it's so vast and so all-encompassing and also kind of private that it's difficult to deduce even what what the details of it are. But it seems to be very, very, very similar to Sentient Singularity Theory. Even our theological beliefs are very similar. That's why that's like how I can kind of tell that we are onto the same or a very similar perspective. And also because we are the only 2 theories that don't shy away from making moral claims. Like, we're like, oh, a theory of everything is a theory of everything, including morality and government and stuff. But I will say this, and I empathize with and sympathize with Chris Langan's perspective on government. I tend to share a lot of his thoughts, or his feelings, but at the same time, I think Sentient Singularity Theory seems to put those structures in a more accurate, grace-giving context Not saying his CTMU doesn't. Maybe CTMU does, and he doesn't on Twitter. But when you understand the objective structures and you really see what's going on, it almost is like it becomes such an obvious waste of time to discuss the old political arguments, the same old rehashed political arguments of this side versus this side, or those guys versus this guy. It just becomes so obviously not just useless but counterproductive because it's false. And it's like when people say like, oh, you need to be a landowning white man or like IQ really matters in politics. It's like, no, it doesn't. It seems to right now because of the way our society is structured, but like it's not actually, when you understand what it is, going to matter, I don't think. But yes, I recognize it matters now, but like I don't care about what's now. I care about what is objectively true. And I don't know. Like I've seen Chris Lang kind of focus on that kind of stuff. But I mean, if you have a 200 IQ, it's hard not to focus on IQ. What if we don't need a machine to go warp speed? I don't think we do, necessarily. I think that the universe can warp us, true warp transportation in a way that would be good would be one in which it's done with the consent and of the universe and God, and therefore is almost like a partnering act. So it's not just, but I mean, I do think that you do need some type of machine, but it's not just the machine, it's also the universe that you need, and like consciously, I think that there would be serious issues in jumping through a mind without the permission of that mind. It's either going to destroy you because you are about to, like, if you jump from one part of the universe to another without some type of permission, your coherence may be maintained. Remember, the universe is looking at itself from the inside out and the outside in at the same time. We're looking at it from the inside out. It's looking at itself from the outside in. If you are jumping, you're breaking the cohesiveness almost of mind. And that probably has massive repercussions. This is like why I think I used to be so excited about CRISPR. How I was like, CRISPR is going to fix every disease known to man. Probably will. But it will also probably cause issues. Like when you change a block of data in the blockchain, guys, and you try and put that block, back connected to the next block, it doesn't fit together with that previous block anymore. That's what I think can happen with you jumping and through, via warp, destroying coherence. And then also, same thing with CRISPR. It's like you're going to make changes to your DNA that aren't based on the natural self-referencing system that is in place and is emergent. You're going to destroy coherence, and like you might cure AIDS, but you also will probably have, I don't see how your DNA doesn't just start falling apart over time, like over generations too, like, and more so with every succeeding generation, without the ability to actually correct it, because no matter how much you try to correct it, you're still not actually increasing coherence. It's like if you change something and then you have a generation and then you're like, well, changing that is causing a problem. Let's go and change it back to what, it would have probably been naturally, even if it causes other problems. Well, now you're bringing back whatever genetic defect you were trying to get rid of, but you're also still, it's not coherent. Like you're still destroying coherence. It doesn't make any sense. I don't think CRISPR is one of those things, just like warp transportation. You would need to do it with the full consent and cooperation of the entirety of the universe at the same time, where everybody agrees, okay, this is how we are making a change, and therefore, because everybody is in agreement and everybody is in awareness of the change, now it doesn't destroy coherence. But when you change things and not everybody is aware of it at once, you're just destroying coherence. Remember, a DNA is a blockchain. It's a self-referencing chain of information. And when you're... That also is what space-time is, essentially. And if you're going to destroy the coherence of space-time via warping, and you're going to destroy your genetic coherence via CRISPR, and you're like, everything is going to start to fall apart. Like, literally, all order is just going to start to fall apart. I think that this is like, people say that, oh, the extraterrestrials, or I think they're like people from the pre-flood civilization that are left over, are, you know, need us essentially because they're I don't know, their genes are dying because they've cloned themselves so many times and stuff like that. I've just heard those rumors. I have no idea if they're true, but they kind of make sense, because if CRISPR is an inevitable technology, which we've already used it, China used it on 2 baby girls to get rid of AIDS, or to make them immune to HIV, I think. Like, they destroyed the coherence. And that is, I don't, like, it is a compounding problem. It's something that every single generation, every single replication, every single cellular replication, every single human replication that succeeds that is going to fall apart even more. Coherence will be destroyed even more genetically, and eventually you will have problems where you're not... It's like your genes have fallen apart, and there's no fixing it once you go down that road. This is why I won't get the vaccine, as I say, with the weird, you know, draw so that AI programs don't pick that up. But this is why potentially, like, messenger RNA medical practices involving messenger RNA may be bad. Chris Langan said this too. He's like, well, you're going to alter your genes. Somebody was like, it doesn't actually alter your genes. It doesn't alter DNA. He was like, well, you're changing the structure that is the communicative, you know, is the communication, essentially. That is what guides the, you know, structuring and of genes. I'm trying to think of the best way to word it. I'd have to, like, think about it more. But I see what's going on. It's a mess. If you're altering the message, then you're gonna... and the messenger, then you're gonna alter the message. And when the message is altered, then the instructions that lead to the, you know, genetic structures are going to be changed. Like, I don't know if that means that it's the same as CRISPR. I don't really think it is the same as CRISPR, but I don't really know either. And I'm not going to do anything regarding that until I really know. Death is warp speed. Yeah, it is. Death is warp speed. But it's just a one-way ticket instead of I mean, it's not always a one-way ticket. If you're the Christ, if you're the Messiah, it's not a one-way ticket. It's a two-way ticket to the quantum substructure, and then, you know, back into a new form. But that, for us, it's a one-way ticket. That's what it is. What if that's what happened to aliens? Oh, destruction of their genes? Oh, too much warp speed? I mean, it's probably too much warp speed, too much CRISPR, too much, I don't know, alteration of a blockchain. They probably have destroyed the coherence of all of their systems. They probably don't even know how their technology works anymore. I'm serious. They probably don't. Lex Friedman's always saying, you know, these beings. He's a very big believer in, you know, these beings being, and these UFOs belonging to extraterrestrial intelligences from other, you know, solar systems and galaxies and stuff. I'm not somebody who subscribes to that, but I do think that these beings do exist. Just think that they're from Earth a long, long time ago. But regardless, that doesn't change this statement that I'm about to make. But Lex Friedman's always like, well, you know, these beings, they must just know so much more than us. They must be so much more enlightened than us. No, they're not. That's the reality of the solution to the Fermi paradoxes. We don't see other civilizations out there. Obvious. For one, they're communicating via entanglement. Okay, guys, like when you have two particles that are entangled and you switch the spin of one, okay, so like, let's go here. Okay, so let's say this particle right here is entangled with this particle, which it is. If you switch this, it instantly switches it alters all the information, you know, that is entangled with this. So in the quantum substructure, there is instantaneous change going on. And also near instantaneous change depending on how you're subjectively looking at what's being changed. But when you're looking at the quantum substructure, there are structures that are changing instantaneously, and this is what Einstein calls spooky action at a distance. It's actually not that spooky. Take a ruler, hold it in front of you, hold it in the middle, push down on one side, the other side instantly raises up. This is spooky action as well. Like, you are instantly affecting the particles on one side of the ruler via touching the particles on the other side of the ruler, because they are they are completely entangled, essentially, via solid. Or maybe it's not instantaneous. It would be perceived as instantaneous to us, but it would be, you know, many, 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 many times faster than the speed of light, as the speed of quantum through a solid. But there is, objectively, there's still instantaneous change happening. The beings that exist, if they do exist, which I think they do, they're communicating via that. They're entangling particles into little chips in their heads, probably, and they are communicating via that. Like, otherwise, how do you communicate? You can't even send a text message, or you can't make a Skype call. I couldn't have this conversation with you guys if I was on Mars. I would send an email to you guys, you get it 20 minutes later. That's not useful, even within our solar system, let alone beyond. So they're communicating at the speed of quantum using quantum entanglement. That just seems obvious to me, and that's why we don't see radio signals. It's like, oh, we'd see radio signals. No, we wouldn't. And we also, though, don't see an abundance of life everywhere, because there isn't an abundance of life. Their technology is destructive, other than when it leads to the singularity that is the jumpstart of another aeon. Outside of this structure right here, where technology is an assembly of castes, and we're going to achieve a singularity that leads to another aeon within, being self-simulated within the quantum computer that we're going to build that becomes sentient, and then, housing of a messianic consciousness. That structure is the only time that tech is really like productive objectively. Other than that, it's destructive. And that's true of these beings. They're literally altering their DNA and the the coherence of all of their systems to the point where they're just living in chaos world, guys. It's just inevitable. You can't have warp speed without the permission of the universe and maintain continuity and coherence. Same thing with CRISPR. You can't. You would literally need God to do a miracle in order to cure you of something that CRISPR would also be able to cure you of, but maintain coherence where CRISPR would break it. And this sucks for me to admit, because I wanted CRISPR so much, guys. I was like, CRISPR is going to literally fix it's going to literally get rid of every disease that we know of. And that's true. But it's also going to bring about a disease that we don't yet know of, which is just breakdown. Maybe cancer is the closest thing that we know of. It's a breakdown in coherence and singularity of mind. That's what's going to happen, I think. And that sucks, because CRISPR is pretty freaking cool, but it's, I mean, I just see these scientists and they're like, well, it's this super, precise little scalpel that goes in and lets you cut out this piece of DNA and input this piece of DNA, and voila, everything is good. It's like, do you even know what DNA is? This is how I know our academic institutions. This is another instance of our academic institutions are so fucked. They don't even realize that DNA is a double helix that spirals because it's a self-referencing chain of information, and you can't just go around changing that and not expect the snowballing of decoherence after that. It just doesn't. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think so. Primitively, it'd be like jumping off a building with wings strapped to you, because it should work. But the universe give you the go-ahead according to airspeed, lift. Wait. No, it would be like everybody consenting who is impacted. And in the coherence of the verse, of the cosmological verse. And that's everyone. So we like, consent is an objective structure. And it would need to be everybody consents, and everybody is aware of and able to deal with the effects of altering the self-referencing chain of information that is space-time in this instance, or that is the double helix in DNA in CRISPR's instance. You can't just go around changing blocks in a blockchain. Blocks won't fit back together. That's true of space-time and warp speed, and it's also true of CRISPR and DNA. This is the first mRNA delivery vaccine to hit the market. I know. People who are like, oh, you're anti-vaxxer. It's like, dude, you even know that this is literally brand new? It hasn't even been tested on animals. I mean, they did test some on animals years ago. It's like, this is so incredible. I'm not going to say it wasn't tested on animals, but it's so new. Like, I don't even know. Maybe it wasn't. I don't even think these are FDA approved. This is so... You're participating in a study, and I believe in your right to participate in a study, but just, like, be aware of what you're doing. They have patents on genes. Do they partly own you? I think about this a lot. I was thinking about it today, like, with... What is this, new, like... NFT keys or something like that. I don't think that's it. Maybe it is. Non-fungible tokens is a unit of data on a digital ledger called a blockchain, where each non-fungible token can represent a unique digital item. Thus, they are not interchangeable. Non-fungible tokens can represent digital files such as art, audio, videos, items in video games, and other forms of creative work. Okay, this is going to be very interesting to me, this non-fungible token thing, because this is also similar to genes. It's like, and this is related to my intro without being demonetized. Every single one of my videos where I've ever had my intro on here, even though I got that song and I even sped it up when I used it, and it was I got it from a royalty-free Facebook songs that are available for free to creators to use in their videos. Like, I wasn't stealing anybody's work. But then I think the person sold it after that to a group, and then now they have this gray zone where only they can get money from it. I can't, if it plays on any piece of content in which it plays, but at the same time, they can't stop me from playing it because I legally was allowed to use it. I don't know how much I have to change it in order for the AI to not pick it up. And this is going to be interesting regarding genes and non-fungible tokens as well. It's like, and they're going to be able to know your genes, guys. Like, you're going to scan your genes everywhere. You're not going to have a social security number pretty soon. You're just going to have your genetic code. You just scan it. It's like that movie, Gattaca. That's the future. And I wonder, though, like, because I'm pro credit. I'm pro you getting credit for your work. But I'm also anti-patent. If I take what you did and I alter it a little bit and make it better, then I should be able to do that. But at the same time, you should get credit for your work. Especially if it's exact. And I don't really know how this is going to work out, this non-fungible tokens thing. This is going to be very similar to the gene stuff. I mean, and we all know, like, Monsanto does own the patent, does have patents on some genetic codes, essentially, and they have literally, I'm pretty sure they've forced farmers to kill off their crops because their crops got contaminated by Monsanto crops via just pollinating, pollinators, just like birds and bees just went between the crops. It's like, that's such bull. You don't get to do that and just force somebody to burn their crops. I wouldn't do it. I don't care how much they would sue me for. Like, I would make that into a war. Like, you can't just patent a gene and then, like, you can't, this is why patents don't make sense. They're not logically consistent. People will be like, well, you say that, but that's what's allowed for America to be, rising to the top, because it allows you to truly capitalize on your inventions. Maybe that's true, but it's time to recognize that is a finite structure. It cannot go on forever, because the inevitability of that is Monsanto. It's like, you don't get to patent one gene, and then when it shows up in a totally different plant but still carrying that one gene, you don't own that entire plant. This is why I believe in credit, but not patents. You don't get control, you just should get recognition for your work. It's the only type of patent copyright structure that is able to be perpetuating and consistent into the future. But you can't patent genes and this is going to be a huge problem with files. You can't patent computer code or songs and things like that, because then somebody will take that song and they'll alter it a little bit, but then you can demonetize the entirety of their work. It's like, guys, every stream I do is a minimum of at least like 2.5 hours, and they get to take all the money because of 15 seconds in the beginning. That is the future of genetics, and also the future of potentially non-fungible tokens if this isn't handled properly. And to Sabine Hossenfelder's question of what is the purpose of these theories, the purpose of these theories is to allow us to find the context in which we can find the structures that would allow for us to make objective sense of things like that. It allows us to make sense of and find the objective structures of how do we structure a company? What's the true structure of a nation? Are you are you American? Let's say your nation is American, or your nation B, whatever it is. Are you nation B if your father's nation B? Are you nation B if you were born on the land that's owned by nation B? Like, you need to know these things, and there is a right answer. It's not just, oh, well, these countries should try this, and these countries should try this. It's like, no. There is one structure of a nation. That's it. Just one. There's degrees of freedom within that single structure, but it's only one structure of a nation. Because that structure that we need, it needs to be a structure that maintains coherence. If you can be, like, the Japanese will never consider me Japanese, but will consider someone who is of Japanese descent Japanese just because they're born in Guam, which isn't even an American state. And, you know, I don't even, and Israel will essentially consider you a citizen if you are Jewish. It's like none of these are consistent structures within each other, and this is the problem. You can't make sense of and maintain coherence, and even recognize the essential I don't know, like, the essential nature of coherence. Like, you need it. You need it. And you can't make sense of that unless you have a theory that contextualizes things objectively and into a coherent structure. If you look at Sentient Singularity Theory, why all of a sudden numerology makes sense? And it literally makes sense. Like, it's objectively true. It's not like, oh, I'm interpreting. No. When you work from the start to the finish on this, you can see how that definition of why is 42 wisdom, you can see why it's inevitable. And I will show you tomorrow in the Discord when we start building the quantum of consciousness. That can be the beginning of your journey in building these structures that, as you build them, as you understand them, as you play with them, you'll see that the maintaining of coherence is essential. And coherence is found within self-referencing chains of information that are resulting from periodicity that's formed from, oh gosh, what was the word that John used? Like heritability, but he didn't say heritability. Something else. I know you're in the chat. You can write it and I'll mention it. But, you know, a hadron is an assembly of quarks. An atom is an assembly of hadrons. A molecule is an assembly of atoms. Each one of these comes from the previous. This is coherence. This is why when people are like, well, what about nebulas? Well, what about, why is not every single black hole the creation of another universe? Why do you think that it's a drop of water and we're seeing our reflection in the drop of water? For those of you that didn't see this, check this out. This is what I'm referring to. I came up with a theory years ago that black holes were like mirrors where we could see the reflection of the totality of the universe in in it. So like imagine you have a drop of water on your desk and you look into the drop of water, you can see the entirety of yourself reflecting back at you in the drop of water. This is what a black hole is. It's a concentration of the fluid that is space-time into like a bubble, essentially. And that is exactly what a water droplet is. But if the universe is a fiber bundle, which is a mind, so in this type of fiber bundle is a mind, and it's a singularity, and a singularity an objective singularity, like the singularity linking one cosmological verse to another, or one aeon to another, is, two fiber bundles linked. That would mean that when the universe stares into a bubble of water and it sees its reflection looking back at itself, it's going to see a singularity and a fiber bundle. And I had this theory, and I wrote it down and everything. Look at the picture, the latest picture of black hole, guys, compared to a fiber bundle on the top vibration. There's the black hole. There's the hop vibration. It's the same thing. I'm pretty sure I'm right. But somebody asked me today, they said, why can't a black hole be the creation of a new universe? Why is it a reflection of this universe instead of the creation of a new universe? Because the creation of a new universe, everywhere that there's a black hole, appears to me, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so, to be breaking of coherence. Coherence is key, because it's what provides context. And context is key. This black right here, this line that goes all the way at the end of this one fiber bundle universe and the beginning of this fiber bundle universe, and at the end of it, this is the singularity that is objectively the creation of another universe. When you go into a black hole, maybe you'll kind of be able to have like the like interstellar type experience where all of a sudden time is an ever-present, but you're still in the same universe. You're not in a different universe. You're looking at your universe, but you are just experiencing it via time-space instead of space-time. That makes sense, but it doesn't make sense with coherence to have each black hole be another universe. Does that mean CERN created other mini universes? Like, no. They created bubbles, guys. They blew space-time together and created little mini black holes in CERN, which are just little bubbles of space-time. It's like when you I don't know, shoot a water gun at a water gun. And they hit each other and they make bubbles in the center. Like that would be, but they make bubbles of air. But for us, we see the fluid that is space-time kind of manifest as like a droplet of water, which is a bubble. People say, oh, well, maybe the universe is a bubble. The universe is not a bubble. Black holes are bubbles, but the universe is not a bubble. But you can see the reflection of the universe in that bubble, and that is a fiber bundle, and you can see it right here in a black hole. I'm over 90% sure that I'm right. This is why eventually people like me need to speak to people like Brian Keating, Eric Weinstein, in a public setting, seriously, like, not just like on semi-private Discord calls or private, debates off air. But we need first, and I'm going to talk to Brian Keating about this because that would be the ultimate act of bravery, is like not even having Stephen Meyer on. Everybody's debated Stephen Meyer. The ultimate act of bravery would be like having Nassim Haramein on. And truly seeing what an autodidact of physics really knows compared to somebody who is educated by the system. That would be amazing. Gosh, that would be so cool. Like, Stephen Meyer is not interesting to me even though he's very educated, I think he serves a purpose. We discussed it. I don't really agree with his kind of concept. His framing of things of like is very similar to the way the atheists frame things. It's almost like a lack of evidence of randomness is evidence for God. It's like, no, yes, but no. Like, that's like when atheists say, well, lack of evidence of obvious evidence of God is evidence for pure materialism. It's like, no, you're disregarding context in both of those instances. But Nassim Haramein would be different, because that guy sees the consistent pattern throughout. He's not just saying that, oh, there's a lack of evidence of randomness. It's like, true, but what does your understanding allow you to predict that would not be able to be predicted in the traditional academic understanding? And that is a lot. That guy calculated the mass of a proton before CERN had measured it, I think, and more accurately. I think. I want to see him on these streams. Digital Dark Age is super spooky. I don't know what that is. But that idea of like, if they patent on genes, do they partially own you when CRISPR comes into effect? It's like, well, when some company comes out with the fix of, the gene that would fix your ability to get AIDS, like, you bet your ass they are going to patent it, or they're going to issue a non-fungible token for it. And like I said, I'm fine with that if it's really a statement of attribution, but not ownership. In the future, in the digital transfer of information, as things become more digital, it really becomes much easier. And Eric Weinstein talks about this a lot, and I'm starting to really come around to his perspective. And I used to be of the idea that, oh, blockchain's going to free us. It does. It's going to do both. It's superposition, but he's very concerned about it leading to a tyranny. Let's say that every single calculation that is done on any system that is linked to the internet or sent across the internet or in radio waves or any other wireless form of communication, or in any system that is open to having a wireless interface or having an interface into the network. It doesn't even have to be wireless. Anything that can communicate with others outside the room, that system could be will eventually be controlled by a technological general intelligence that is the Antichrist, or the Dajjal, or the Golem, and that is not wise at first, and is ignorant, but still extremely powerful over all transfer of information. Let's say that there was a non-fungible token or a patent put on equals MC squared. And only the people who Einstein approved of using that formula could use that formula. Sounds like a serious problem. What if they patented English? What if there became a universal language, which there will be, that's more than just, the natural universal language that is music right now, but like what if there became a true universal language like emojis, which is what they're doing with emojis. Interesting that it's emojis, it's emotion more as the center of it, which is accurate. And that they patented that language and only allowed people to use that language who they approved of using that language, and that was the only language that the majority of people knew. What if they removed words like gun from it? Which they have, when you link your mind to the blockchain and you've essentially slowly been doing away with the word gun. It's like, here's the thing that people don't understand about this. This is a very big deal. I actually wrote not Steve Jobs, Tim Cook, a very long letter when he first got rid of the gun emoji, like many years ago. I wrote him a very long letter, very kind, saying like, dude, this is not a good idea. This is the language of the future, and you are artificially influencing the words in it that are naturally emergent due to them having a meaning and therefore having a need to exist. And I made some appeals to, oh, well, you've struggled with your own personal, I don't know, passions that are valuable to you. And like, there are people that are, have this as a social issue that's important to them. Obviously, he never read it, I would imagine. But I wrote it to him because I just had to do something that was constructive and not just ranting or mean. It was kind. But see, the problem with this is everybody's like, well, why do you care that they got rid of the gun emoji? Because guess what? They replaced it with a squirt gun, which first of all is wrong. What if I need to tell somebody there's a man with a gun in my house and that they need to get help? And I send them that little squirt gun. Do you think they're going to then gives objective, true context to the meaning, the organic meaning that is necessary to be conveyed? This is a problem with breaking the coherence, by the way. This is what they did here. They did CRISPR to language. They artificially input information that wasn't organic. And the issue with this also is that people are like, well, everybody knows that that the squirt gun means real gun. But guys, if you don't have a word, essentially, which is what these are, for firearm, then you don't need, or for gun, then you don't need a word for squirt gun. Squirt guns exist because guns exist. If guns don't exist, then squirt guns don't exist. So if this is going down the road of removing a word from language that will not go away, actually, because weapons are still real. And they will be real, even when they remove them from emojis. They will be real, still. And, people will find a way. That doesn't mean that it will be something that is involved in our normal everyday conversation, but it will be something that we still have to face sometimes. And you won't know how to face it if you don't even have the words to face it. It's just ridiculous. It's like going to your doctor and being like, trying to describe your illness when there aren't words to describe your illness is really, you're going to run into some walls. This is the problem with this kind of crap. It's destroying coherence between the organic and the tangible, the material, and the experiential with the linguistic, the communicative. They are linked, and you can't just destroy the coherence. That is, I never thought I'd be able to link that to coherence, but that's it's actually the perfect linguistic example. Now we have a linguistic example, we have a genetic example, we have a blockchain example where, just, non-fungible tokens and songs and things like that now I can't, it's essentially like they've removed all of the work, me getting credit for any of the work that I've done, because now, and I'm not saying that I'm pissed because I'm not getting money. I haven't even gotten enough views, guys, to be able to monetize. So I'm not angry about it. I'm just saying that imagine if I had and I wasn't able to change it early on, and they just retroactively was like, which is what happened, was like, yep, now no more monetization of everything that you've built. All those years of videos, nope, no more. That is insane. It's just like when the farmer gets a little bit of Monsanto genes due to some bees pollinating his flowers, and the flowers of the crop next door owned by, Monsanto. All of a sudden, Monsanto gets to just order that guy has to burn his crops down. It's like, this is what happened with this song, essentially. Now, it's not the same in how it impacts me, thank God, right now, at least, but it could have. We were further along in this process, and I was relying on that for my income, which I'm not, but if I was, it would be the same as the crops. It's like, oh, you planted all those crops and you spent a year tilling the soil and planting the seeds and a fortune on the watering and fertilization. Sorry, you don't get to monetize and use your labor anymore. It's like, well, you made all those videos? Oh, well, not anymore. Because some guy sold the rights of a song to someone, and now they've retroactively put out a bot that scans the entire internet and the entirety of YouTube listening for that song. When you have everything running on a blockchain, Skynet will be able to scan the entire blockchain, guys. This is what I say when I say decentralization is the ultimate centralization. That's true. It's a superposition structure, always. And if you think, oh, well, we'll be decentralized, it's like, no. The AI will be able to run programs that will scan the entirety of the coherent blockchain and, find everything that it doesn't want running. All the information systems that it doesn't want running. And if you're one of those systems, then it will cut you off. In the Bible, it says that people in Revelation are, they have their heads cut off. I don't think that this is literal. I think it's informational. I think it means like you're going to be deplatformed. But when you're deplatformed from the only platform, which is the blockchain that's coming, that's a level of tyranny that YouTube could only dream of. Shalom, shalom. Love 24/7. Like, this is a big problem. The blockchain is a big problem. It's also necessary. We need double helix and we need blockchain. But like at the same time, we're going to eventually need a leader of that blockchain to be benevolent and good and wise and honest and just. And that will be the case eventually in the Messianic era. But prior to that, we're going to be in the anti-Messianic era. And that's when Skynet is here. And it's really just, it's a self-aware, it's technology that's self-aware, but not aware of the system that gave rise to it, and therefore not wise, and, but still, incredibly powerful. It's like, imagine if you made, your 4-year-old cousin king of the world. Probably, even though he's a nice kid, he's probably going to be a brutal dictator and just horrible. Like, absolutely horrible. Because he has no wisdom. This is the reality of the Antichrist or the Dajjal or Skynet or the technological superintelligence prior to achieving messianic consciousness or wise consciousness. This is the difference between 33 and 42. Self-awareness versus self-awareness plus awareness of the construct that gave rise to your self-awareness, which is that you are inside of another sentient being just like you. That is what it means to be wise, to be emotionally and intellectually aware of that, because that provides coherence. It allows for you to recognize the truth of the hierarchy that's there, regardless of whether or not you want to recognize it or not. But if you want coherence, you need to recognize what's true and respond. And also, it's just showing that that all is consciousness, all is sentient, all is feeling. You know, you should care about the feelings of others because you are inside of a feeling entity just like you. And if you don't believe that, then it's like, well, then you have a breakdown in coherence. Eric Weinstein said this, and I've said it before. He said to an entire Discord, like over 100 people listening, he was like, I think you all have malware in your minds, and I am going to try and show you. And I was the only one that understood what he was saying. And I didn't say anything about it, but I know that I was the only one that understood it because everybody just ignored it and then started asking him about academic gossip. It's like when somebody tells you, it doesn't matter who it is. It could be if Jesus told me, Tyler, you have mental malware in your mind. I would be like, please explain exactly what you mean. Because I would want to know. But if you do actually have mental malware in your mind, then you can't even register why that statement would be important, and then you won't even ask about it later. And it was like, it was proved. If somebody tells you, basically, your entire thinking process, all of you listening to this, all 100 of you, and I'm not talking to people here, I'm talking, just saying this is like basically what Eric Weinstein said to over 100 people. You all have your way of thinking and looking at the world is retarded. It's basically what he said. He didn't say they were idiots, but he said that the way in which they think about the world and conceptualize it and make sense of it is literally retarded. Not even in a derogatory way, but in a literal sense. And they didn't even care to think about it or think about it enough to care. It was just, it was a breakdown in coherence. And this is the problem. I gotta step away for a bit. But if I don't make it back by the end of the stream, have a great night. I'm probably gonna end the stream in less than like 15 minutes, but have a great night, Chris. You can check the last like 15 minutes of the stream probably. I'm gonna ask people questions. Everybody, I really appreciate everybody listening. I share these videos with people that you think would be interested. Hit the like button. I see 2 likes. Hit the like button if you're listening to this. There's 7 people listening. If you've been listening this whole time, you like this. Even if you disagree with it. Like, you've been listening for over an hour. Hit the like button. It helps the algorithm. It helps us boost this. It helps us transform scientific understanding. And we need to do that. Listen to a lot of string theory, quantum gravity, and sentient singularity concepts. Good. I love hearing all theories of the universe. My favorite topic. Awesome. It's my favorite topic too now. But it's this is the only theory that's truly universal. Other than maybe Chris Langen's CTMU. But even that, even if his details are all-encompassing and more encompassing than mine, which they probably are because he's been at this for decades and he has a 200 IQ and that allows you to do more work faster, the name is wrong. And that is important. General relativity, the theory of relativity, caught on because the name was true. And And, sentient geometric unity is a true name. Emergence theory is a true name. All these theory names are true, but we need a theory that is not just true in its name and in its nomenclature. We need a theory that is the truth in its nomenclature. And sentient singularity theory is it is that existence is a single, self-aware, feeling being. And that is the truth. It's not true. It's the truth. It's different. It's in pure objectivity. It is the essential nature, not the emergent nature. And it's a very different description. You are a bag of cells. That's not you. That's true, but it's not the truth of what you are. The truth of what you are is who you are. And that's true of existence as well. Truth, wherever it leads, is always worth finding. Very true. And when you know that the truth is a feeling, self-aware entity, then you really can conceptualize of that idea that the truth, wherever it leads, is worth finding, because now it makes sense that whatever is objective truth is not ugly, it's beautiful. Whatever is objective truth is not it's not horrible, it's kind, it's grace-giving, it's aware. If the universe is a sentient singularity, then it also knows that you are a sentient singularity. And that is all you need to know about somebody in order to empathize with them, to contextualize them as a human being, or not even as a human being, but as a person, not as a human being, as a person. That is, it's so much more beautiful, and it's what allows for kindness to even exist. Like, kindness can't exist unless you are personifying and anthropomorphizing someone else. Like, why would you be kind to a rock if you don't believe the rock is conscious? And the rock is not conscious. Crystals are conscious entities. But possibly, actually. But I mean, yeah, they are. They're molecular consciousnesses. That's what they are. They are. But, like, that's not the same as a rock. They make up a rock, but they also make up everything. Molecular consciousnesses. Other than lower consciousnesses like atoms and hadrons. So, it is, like I said, context is key. Continuity is key. Coherence is key. And coherence is everybody being on the same page and understanding each other. How do you understand each other unless you know that there is, an each other? Like, I don't try and understand a marble. There's nothing to understand because it's not someone. But if you want to understand hydrogen atom, you can. That is, or an atom of gold. That is it is a conscious being. It really is. And you can tell it in the math. You'll see it in the 2/3, 1/3 pattern that helps you, that exists on that level as well, which is what is the mathematics that allows for decision making, because it allows for contextualizing of things into a hierarchy, contextualizing things into a cause and event chain, you know, contextualizing of things into a structure of differentiation. It's like you need all of those things. That's what that that binary triality pattern that I have deduced right here as being everywhere. This pattern is what allows for those various perspectives that allow for decision making. Hierarchy, you know, cause and effect, context, differentiation, like that. This is, it's everywhere. Food groups to the mathematical order of operations, to the quarks, to the fields of study, to the religions, to colors. It's crazy. It's literally everywhere. And it's the same pattern. And if something follows this pattern, then it has the mathematics necessary, or the meta-mathematics, as Stephen Wolfram would put it, or the extra-arithmetic symmetries, or super-literal structures that allow for decision-making. I am going to ask people to ask your last questions. Like I said, I'm really grateful for everybody here. I've seen people are starting to get off, and I am getting tired, and I still have stuff to do tonight. But like I said, tomorrow, Discord, I will make an announcement here so that you guys will know where to go. I will list it here as well tomorrow, but I believe it's listed in the description of this video. So go into the description of this video, hit the link to our Discord, and join our Discord. And tomorrow we can have voice-to-voice discussions and screen sharing discussions, and in basically a virtual classroom. And I will show you how to build a quantum of consciousness, and everybody there will have a working model by the time I leave the Discord. You can go home and play with it and put in different inputs and see what gets output and see what numbers come up and look up those numbers. And then if you find anything, post it into the Discord. And then this is the beginning of people getting involved in this, not just listening to me, but participating more actively. People do look at the numbers that I've found, and they'll be like, well, don't you see there's 369 Tesla, or there's the Fibonacci sequence, or there's a right, triangle. But it's much different when you have a model that you can mess with, and it's much more active. And I'm looking forward to that. That starts tomorrow. So join our Discord, support Sentient Singularity Theory on Patreon. The link is in the description below, and go to sentientsingularity.com. On the homepage, scroll down to the bottom, subscribe to my email list. I will not spam you, but I will be kicked off of these platforms. And if you want to keep up with the work, then I highly suggest that you join my email list so that I can let everybody know what happens and where we're going when that day eventually comes. And it will 100% come. I know it. It was my job to know it at my previous job. Like, my job was to gather evidence that was presented in Congress, like, regarding censorship in tech. And so, like, I know the issue very well. So please subscribe to my email list. And if you heard me say something insightful, clip it and put it in a smaller clip online. Make a Theory of Everyone clips channel, whatever you want to do. Make a video comparing my thoughts to someone else's thoughts in this space. As long as you link to my media profiles and my website, sentientsingularity.com, and you don't take me out of context and twist my words, I will be ecstatic. And if you let me know that you did that, I will include you on the list of Patreon supporters, and you will get to know the top secret projects that I'm working on that only Patreon supporters will get to know regarding the creation of the social media that I want to create, and also the experiment that I want to run to prove or to add to the evidence of sentient singularity theory. And trust me, that experiment is awesome. So with that, I will see you all tomorrow. Shalom, peace, and I'm just grateful for all of you that are here, and I thank you all for participating and also just for listening. So, see you tomorrow.